and now Trump's key economic advisor, and headed for the Federal Reserve before attacks from the left forced him to withdraw from consideration, Stephen Moore, who last week described for us the living hell he was put through by radicals intent on derailing his nomination to the Fed. And this week, we're back to talk with him about trade and tariffs and taxes, all vital elements of the economic agenda he helped the president to formulate. As fears of a trade war with China heat up, Stephen Moore says our current agreements with China hardly amount to so-called free trade.
We don't have a free trade, arrangement with China. I hate tariffs, by the way. I'm a free trade guy. Milton Friedman taught me my economics, and he always said, free trade is one of the most important pillars of prosperity. But, you've got a situation now where we're in a very abusive relationship with China. They lie, they cheat, they steal. They're involved in cyber security issues, espionage. They're involved in hacking into our computer systems. They're stealing our intellectual property. It's a big, big problem. And I'm not so sure that the tariffs are the best way to deal with it, but it's on the table right now. Trump has basically set these tariffs, and I think we have to I think the worst outcome now would be for Trump to stand down. We need China to stand down because there is nothing that Donald Trump is asking of China that is unreasonable. They should stop stealing our intellectual property. They should open up their markets to us. They should reduce their tariffs. They should, stop, the kind of takeover of companies that do business over there. They need to be a more open market system, and they're just not right now.
Well, it seems, Steve, that the president views tariffs as a means, not an end. But how do you square your own strongly held belief in free trade and aversion to protectionism with the president's willing embrace of tariffs?
Well, that's a good question, and I do hate tariffs because they are taxes. But I mean, in this case, and look, people can disagree on this, and I think there's a good, healthy debate here. But I do think I think you put it very well. In the end, I believe what Trump will accomplish here is freer trade. I think in the end, China will stand down because they cannot withstand 25% tariffs. It'll destroy their economy. And I think they'll give in. And when they do, it'll be better for both countries. We'll have lower tariffs. We'll lower our tariffs. They lower their tariffs. We have an open and free system that's a level playing field. I think both countries can prosper under that kind of situation, but we can't. I don't know about you, Tim. I just don't think we can go forward with this current relationship. If you're in an abusive relationship, you have to get out of it.
Well, and it's been abusive for so long, and this is one issue that the president, before he was president, had hammered on for years.
Yes.
Every time you heard him talk, he'd talk about how we're being played for suckers by the Chinese, and it seems that Trump is the first one, maybe the only one, who would step up and actually take any action. But China is a U.S. adversary, but the EU is not. Do you think the use of tariffs against the EU is an appropriate policy?
It's interesting because at the G7 meeting, which was now, I forget, 9 months ago, Trump put on the table with the European leaders, why don't we just go to zero tariffs? And that's something that Larry Kudlow and I had really been pressing. And the Europeans who were complaining about, Trump's trade policies, they completely shrieked in horror when he said, why don't we go to zero tariffs? But that's the solution here. Get rid of tariffs. And Trump put it on the table, and the Europeans backed away from that. So I think in the end of the day, I'm hopeful, and maybe I'm being excessively hopeful. I think we're going to end up with lower tariffs. I mean, we've got a pretty good new U.S., Canada, Mexico trade agreement. By the way, I want to get this in before we close. One of the most important priorities of Congress should be to have an up or down vote on that new NAFTA agreement, because I worked, remember that was Ronald Reagan's idea to have North America be a free trade zone. And we can't get Nancy Pelosi to bring that issue up for a vote because she knows it will pass. And she's part of a resistance movement. So she's resisting Trump, even though it's something that a lot of Democrats understand is in America's best economic self-interest.
Our guest is Stephen Moore, economist extraordinaire here on Liberty Nation Radio. Let's talk tax cuts, Steve. How much of a difference has the tax cut, which took effect last year, had on this economy?
Well, I'm very proud of this because I worked on this with Art Laffer and Larry Kudlow, and we put sort of the original version of this together for Donald Trump. And I saw the president a couple of weeks ago, and I just kind of laughed. I said, "Mr. President, this is working better than we thought it would," and we were big believers in it. But I mean, it's been a spectacular success. And anyone who looks at the economy today and looks at what's happened with jobs, we've got the best job market in 50 years. We've got the best economy in terms of growth in 20 years. The economy is firing up. I mean, the tariff battle has taken some of the wind out of the sails of the economy, but it's very, very strong. And I think the tax cuts have increased business investment, business spending, business hiring. It was a very pro-business tax cut. And I'm not apologizing for that. We're for American businesses. We want American businesses to be as financially successful as possible so they can pay higher wages and hire more workers. And, Tim, that's exactly what they're doing.
Well, the effect of the tax cut was far greater in terms of the corporate side than the individual side, right? I mean, the significance of the tax cut mostly rested in corporate tax reform. Am I right on that?
That was, to me, that was the sort of gemstone of the tax plan. Our business tax rates were so out of whack with the rest of the world. We were charging 40% on our businesses, and other countries were charging 20%. And, as Larry Kudlow used to say, that's a 20% Head Start program for every country we compete with. I mean,
right.
How economically masochistic is that? I mean, why would you want to? We want to have the most pro-growth tax system, not the least. And I think almost overnight, thanks to Donald Trump, I don't know if we have the best business tax system, but it's a hell of a lot better than it was 2 years ago. I mean, we had companies leaving the United States, Burger King and Medtronic and other major companies, and they told us why they were leaving because the taxes were too high here. And so now they're coming back. We're very proud of that. Somebody asked me the other day, with this booming economy, is this just you noticed now, Tim, they're saying, oh, this is just the Obama economy.
Oh, yeah,
right.
Of course.
I mean, this is the same, Obama 2 months before the election said, Trump, how is he going to do this? How is he going to create 3% growth with 1 million new manufacturing and mining and construction jobs? Is he going to do it with a magic wand? Well, I don't know, Tim. Maybe this president has a magic wand because he's done it. And I think his critics now should just stand down. I mean, what's really interesting to me is I think every Democratic presidential candidate, how many are there now, 22 or something? I'm still searching for one who does not want to repeal this glorious tax cut that has been so good for families and businesses. But this is like a religion to these people. Even though it's good for the economy and good for people's wallets, and by the way, the average family, according to the Heritage Foundation, where I work, is saving about $2,000 to $3,000 a year, which is, I don't what Nancy Pelosi says. If you're making $60,000 a year and you get an extra $2,000, that ain't, what was it she called it, crumbs. I don't think that's crumbs for a lot of people who are living on a fixed income. Literally, Tim, I'm an optimistic guy. You've known me a long time.
Yes.
But I didn't predict the economy would be as strong today. I mean, it's like, the last chapter of my book, Tim, is called A Light Switch is Flicked from Off to On. And that came from a auto mechanic, guy who runs an auto mechanic shop outside of Cleveland, Ohio. And I remember I asked him about 6 or 9 months after the election, I said, Tim, I said to this guy, Joey, I said, how's business at your company? It's maybe 15 employees. And he said, Steve, it's almost like the day after the election when Donald Trump was elected. A light switch was flicked from off to on in my store, and he said, ever since then, I've had more customers than I can handle. And that's the Trump effect. And, we need 5 more years of this. I mean, did you know we have 1.5 million more job openings than unemployed people in the country today?
Yeah, imagine if the media actually covered that element of the story. I know, Steve, that, for example, our trash collectors here where we live in Northern Virginia, they are sending out emergency bulletins saying they can't find workers to do their regular pickup on Thursday. They have to do it on Saturday because in a booming economy like this, who wants to be a trash collector when there's 1.5 million jobs out there that they need to fill that are higher wage and a little more prestigious and better
And that's
work.
a nice little story because it's a little microcosm of what's going on. So guess what? Those people who are doing the trash collecting, I bet they're probably earning overtime pay now, right?
Yes.
So their wages and salaries are going up. And we wanted to create a very tight labor market because Donald Trump is a working class president. He cares about working. That tax cut was never about helping rich people. But every meeting we had with Trump, he said, I don't care about rich people. They can take care of themselves. It's about the middle class. It's about the people at the bottom. How do you help them out of poverty? Get them a job. Create a tight labor market so they can bargain up their wages. We don't need higher minimum wages, Tim. The wages are going up on their own. The magic of the free market system.
Well, on that note, Stephen Moore, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and I think you've opened a lot of eyes and clarified a number of things. Best of luck to you. We'll be seeing each other very soon.
Thanks, Tim.
That is Stephen Moore, and we've got the entire interview with him available in 3 parts at libertynation.com. We'll break away for a moment, then come back with Talkin' Liberty, featuring great news for some people about those much vilified red light cameras and other news regarding your individual liberty.